Hey there. Welcome in on a Thursday edition. Tim Hill, unrestricted free agent. Appreciate you being along. Gonna have some fun today. Cranking up the tunes as well. We got major golf going on. Tiger Woods starting off with a birdie at the PGA Championship. We're starting off. I'm starting off with an apology. I'm sorry. This goes out to Jimbo Fisher. I think it was about this time last year. Jimbo in the off-season meetings. Off-season, what Shane Beamer was doing last night, right? Shane Beamer was hanging out in the Rock Hill, the York County Gamecock Club. Got a great line. Like, I don't know what the other coaches were doing, but it's never going to happen again at South Carolina where the head coach isn't going to come hang out and see you guys. And speaking of that, hanging out with Justin this morning, Craig, Anthony, York, all you guys weighing in. Appreciate you jumping on and being a part of the program. But my apology to Jimbo Fisher is I gave the old gas baggy hot take this time last year, about this time. It was probably maybe a couple of months into the summer where Jimbo Fisher comes out and says, yeah, we're going to beat Alabama. And we're going to do it soon. And I think a lot of us said, Jimbo Fisher, what are you doing, man? You're just making it that much more difficult on yourself. But then Texas A&M backed it up last year on the field. Beat Alabama. That's not what my apology's for, though. Nick Saban yesterday, you probably have heard, with a microphone in his hand, saying that Texas A&M bought every single player in their recruiting class, and that's why they finished number one. Alabama did not buy a single player in their recruiting class that finished number two. Clearly, Jimbo is in Nick Saban's head already. They made a massive impact, backed it up. Jimbo, I'm sorry. You deserve an apology. You backed it up. You didn't just talk it last year. You backed it up on the field. Then you backed it up on the recruiting trail. Texas A&M is more than relevant right now in college football. And if Nick Saban is complaining about you, you're doing something right. And if Nick Saban's complaining, I'm all for it from the college football standpoint. All for it. He's dominated way too well, too long. Good for Texas A&M. Good for college football for mixing it up, giving a program like Texas A&M the opportunity to do what they're doing. I get it. If you want to say college football is pure and this pay for play stuff is tainting the game, then I think you're awfully naive. And if you think Alabama didn't pay for a single player in their recruiting class, like Nick Saban's saying, get out of here. They had a quarterback that made $1 million, right? Before he'd ever taken a snap or ever played any meaningful college football. He did go on to win the Heisman Trophy and was fantastic, no doubt about it. But let's not pretend like Alabama is squeaky clean and innocent. And what is it? It's an Ivy League school. It doesn't even give out scholarships. Is that what we're pretending there, Nick Saban? That's how he came off. And that's why I think maybe a lot of you are with me. It's certainly why I have no sympathy for Nick Saban. And I love it. I love that Texas A&M kind of threw them off the throne there from a recruiting ranking standpoint. Now, the bad thing is, now that I think about it, is now Nick Saban's going to be ticked off and going to be out to prove a point, and you never want that. But I said that same kind of thing this time last year, and clearly it didn't affect Texas A&M too negatively when it came to their matchup with Alabama. Jimbo knows Nick Saban very well, having been on the same staff as him back in the day. He, on the offensive side of the ball, was Will Muschamp on the defensive side of the ball over at LSU for at least a year. I think it might have been a couple of years. So good for Texas A&M. Good for college football is how I want to start this show on a May 19th, which is all about is a great representation of how great college football is, that it can be relevant on May 19th, so many months ahead of the next college football season, so many months removed from the last one. It is what makes college football great in so many ways. RL also weighing in this morning. Good morning, RL. Good to see you guys in on the program. From the Gamecock perspective, Shane Beamer just gets it, right? He gets it. Rock Hill is a massive football town, USA, right? It is very important, clearly, when it comes to prospects and per capita, the most NFL players in any city in America, and to not show them some love. I guess from the head coaching perspective, it's not that difficult to go spend a couple of hours max to drive up the 80 miles, 70 miles, whatever it is from Columbia, and to do that once a year. I mean, how hard is that? But I think the whole point of that comment is that it just hadn't happened before for whatever reasons. And everybody that's a Gamecock fan knows that the Gamecock Club stuff happens, and there's kind of behind the scenes politics that goes into it and the whole thing. I'm not saying that it's just a clear right or wrong choice for a Gamecock coach to make. I'm sure the Will Muschamp and Steve Spurrier had scheduling conflicts, and they were probably on the road recruiting maybe when some of these meetings happened. And yeah, that happens. But you got to find a way, right? And Shane Beamer just gets it. He just gets it there. RL says, I find it hard to believe Muschamp was not there. Well, yep, it happened apparently. And it's just a case right there. Like Jimbo Fisher gets it at Texas A&M. He saw the writing on the wall there at Florida State. They weren't investing in the program how he felt, how he knew was necessary to invest to continue to compete at the highest level. And when that happened, he was gone. He had a foot out the door and was looking around and clearly cashed in at Texas A&M. And that's a program that just could not be more thirsty, hungry, whatever dumb analogy you want to put out there, for a championship, for relevancy in college football. A lot like South Carolina in a lot of ways. Played a lot of years, had a massively loyal fan base. They got maybe a little bit more money, a few more resources than maybe any program out there, right? And now flexing their muscle in the new era of the NIL and college football and the transfer portal and the whole deal. Good for them. And anytime in May, Nick Saban is complaining about your program, I think it's a great sign that you're doing something right. So that's where we start this morning. Also, PGA Championship has teed off, and Tiger Woods started with a birdie. We'll keep you updated on that as much as possible as we move throughout the morning. However you're joining us, that reminds me, I need to turn on my little light behind me so we get the green screen going. Pause. There we go. Now we're all up and running on the video portion of this live stream there, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Listening on the audio portion on Podbean Live, or if you're catching us later, we really appreciate you being a part of the program. This program is all about coming at the sports scene from the South Carolina angle for sure. And then who knows where it goes from there. We got several guests on the docket today. Going to get into a bit of a basketball discussion with a couple of high school coaches that will be maybe adjusting is the right word to put it, to new rules. A shot clock going to be instituted, at least kind of experimentally, I think, in high school basketball in the state of South Carolina for the first time. And these two guys might be seeing that a little differently. John Combs from Westwood High School and David Smith over at Pelion. They're going to join us about 10:30 or so. And maybe they can weigh in with a more expert opinion about what I saw last night in the NBA playoffs that kind of just bored me and disappointed me, where the Warriors just drubbed the Dallas Mavericks. I'm trying to do the math here off the top of my head. 25 points, 112-87 was never that close and the exact opposite of what I had hoped to happen, right? Came on here yesterday, was hyping up that series, Luka Doncic, what he did personally, what his team was able to do to the Phoenix Suns in that game 7, especially on the road, and how he kind of exerted his will, felt like he took the next step to superstardom, and then clearly they just weren't ready for the Warriors. But it's a 7-game series. So I'm hopeful that they can get back in it. These 7-game series, though, what I hate the most is when you get games where one team clearly is motivated and playing well and executing one game, and then the next game can be the opposite, or maybe at home you see the home court advantage where you got what you got last night, where it's not that close. I'm hoping we don't get that much more. As I'm looking at the leaderboard, though, very excited about what might happen this weekend, the PGA Championship. 1 under through 3 is where I have Tiger Woods right now, tied for 6th. A couple of shots back of Will Zalatoris, 3 under through 4. Quite the start for him. You got a group of 4 guys at 2 under. Looks like Max Homa just popped up to tied for first as well. 3 under through 4 as well. Whew, it's going to be fun. These names on the leaderboard. I mean, the fact that John Daly's at the top at 1 under through 9. Looks like he might have been the first group off, certainly one of the first groups off through the most holes at this point. Just to mention John Daly and the PGA Championship. Fantastic. Then you got Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy and Jordan Spieth. The entire group 1 under right now through 3 is what we have them at. And that's good for tied for 6th. Oh, this is going to be fun. I hope we get those guys being relevant in the next few days and get to see some tremendous drama there at the PGA Championship. Again, just happy to have that one relevant right now for sure. Our golf expert on the program, Meredith Taylor, weighing in on this thing. Meredith's watching us on the YouTube channel. She says, happy PGA Championship Thursday. Absolutely. And anytime we get the live sporting event in the 10 to noon window, always a good thing as well. So we'll keep you updated on how it's going out in Tulsa at the PGA Championship as we move throughout the program. But wanted to get back into more of the college football discussion. And again, what Shane Beamer kind of represented last night in that one little comment that I mentioned. It won't happen again as at South Carolina, not going up to the York County Gamecock club meeting. It just shows that he gets it. Now, the other move yesterday that made a bunch of headlines was really interesting, right? Freddie Kitchens. I saw the news pop in my email. Freddie Kitchens joins Shane Beamer's coaching staff. And I was like, man, Freddie Kitchens, that sounds familiar. Hadn't said that name, hadn't thought about that name in a while. He is that guy who you might be thinking of. Maybe it was in the back of your head somewhere too. The former Cleveland Browns coach for a year, did not go well. But now he's joining the staff and not even in a permanent assistant coach role, or this reminds me of Stuart Lake and how he was talking about baseball and the volunteer assistant and how he absolutely does not like that and considered that an insult in his time and the whole thing. Well, the football designations, not nearly as restrictive, but Freddie Kitchens joining the staff as an analyst, technically, offensive analyst, guy that has been in the NFL since 2006, I think it is. So 15 plus years of experience from the NFL, was an Alabama guy in college. And now Shane Beamer has a former NFL head coach as an analyst in his role. This is where we are in college football in 2022. That you can go from head coach of one of the 30 teams in the NFL. I think it's 30, right? Maybe 32. I forget. Those leagues always fluctuate. I think it's 32, actually. You go from one of 32 top jobs, you'd think, in the profession. And a couple of years later, now you're at an SEC school, but not even an on-field assistant. And talk to Eric Kemery about that, right? And all the commitment. Talked to Patrick DeMarco about that. Patrick DeMarco also in an analyst/development role, former All-Pro in the NFL. Man, I only see this as a good thing. I know the public perception of a guy that didn't succeed in a NFL head coaching role in a year is what it is, but you can add that to your staff. Man, what an interesting hire. And I guess the connection between Freddie Kitchens and Shane Beamer was they crossed paths back at Mississippi State when Shane was basically just starting his career as an assistant under Sylvester Croom, and Freddie Kitchens was there as well. What a fascinating move, man. And again, some guys get it and some guys don't. And for specific jobs I'm talking about, right? I don't think Tommy Bowden never quite got it at Clemson. Dabo immediately did. Dabo Swinney immediately got it. He fit in. He knew exactly what Clemson fans would take to and was able to win enough games quickly enough to really get that thing going. And now endeared and obviously to the next level, multiply it times whatever power you want to, right? Shane Beamer came in a difficult situation, man. The end of that Will Muschamp era was messy, but as a popular choice from former players, first of all, which helped him out a bunch. Not necessarily the top name for a lot of Gamecock fans, I think it's fair to say. Unproven head coach, never been a head coach. Son of a Hall of Fame head coach. Tough spot to be, man. There's a lot to live up to. Especially how Frank Beamer did it. Doing it at Virginia Tech and building it up from obscurity and making them into a college football power. Shane Beamer was there as a teammate of Michael Vick. I mean, he saw it all. Was an assistant coach there towards the end of the Frank Beamer era in Virginia Tech and in Blacksburg. So having to kind of step out of that shadow, having been in a bunch of major college programs, very important, I think, especially moving from Georgia to Oklahoma, I think massively important for Shane Beamer. And he knew what he's doing, right? He understood what was necessary to build the proper resume for him to become a major college football head coach. He came in with Kirby Smart at Georgia, so saw the Nick Saban assistant transition and everything that Kirby Smart kind of laid the foundation for at Georgia, where obviously rolling as well, and especially from a recruiting standpoint. So he had that, and then jumped kind of, I would say, out of the comfort zone in a lot of ways, right? Mostly a Southeast guy, Tennessee, Mississippi State, South Carolina, Virginia Tech, and then jumped over to Oklahoma with Lincoln Riley and probably the most prolific offense in college football that we've seen in the last several years. I think that's fair to say when the run of quarterbacks with the Freddie Kitchens connection and Baker Mayfield and Jalen Hurts and transfer and a whole thing. Go down the list, right? Throw the Gamecocks' current quarterback in there too with Spencer Rattler. But the fit there, the more Shane Beamer is around the program, able to guide the program, the more I'm convinced that he really just understands the unique challenges, probably would say opportunities, I'm guessing, that are presented to the South Carolina head coach. And having seen it before, I think massively important. And as I say that, I'm trying to think. I don't think we've seen that. I don't know if we ever saw that. Some of you more experienced Gamecock football followers will have to maybe lead me in the right direction back to the Jim Carlin days or before. But I'm talking about former assistant coaches having left the program and then come back as a head coach for Gamecock football. I don't think we've seen that. We saw the model that Mike McGee went with getting Hall of Fame coaches in there, national championship coaches with Lou Holtz and then Steve Spurrier. And then the curious hire of Will Muschamp, I think, is a nice way to put it. But none of those guys really understood, I don't think, when they took the job, exactly what the job was going to entail. I mean, Steve Spurrier basically pitched a fit in, I think it was his second year, maybe it was even the first year, where he's having a hard time getting a guy in school and said, basically, I could have taken the North Carolina job. I can go take another job. I don't need this. And either this school is going to do this or I'm going to take my ball and go home, was kind of his point back then. Also came in with a couple of Outback Bowls, but really there's nothing in the trophy case here. And why not us? We're going to win some championships. And Shane Beamer was there in that championship game in 2010 in the SEC, the lone division championship, and being able to play for the SEC championship that didn't work out well against Cam Newton, as we all know. But having seen that up close and personal, having seen all of these different programs, being attached to all these really successful head coaches, Phil Fulmer, Lincoln Riley, Kirby Smart, Frank Beamer, and then now being able to draw from that experience, it's a good resume for a first-year head coach, which doesn't happen that often in the SEC. But, I mean, all these Nick Saban assistants happened for them, right? With Kirby Smart being at the top of that list and the top of the successful guys doing it. So I love the fact that getting a little bit of college football stuff right now from Nick Saban. I love that he was honest enough to put it out there that Texas A&M ticked him off, and I'm assuming that every Texas A&M fan out there taking that as an extreme compliment, or there's no reason to take it anything other than that, right? Bought and paid for, I think is how we put it. Every recruit, they bought every recruit. Okay. Do you have proof that they broke the rules? Or are you just going to be that guy? To me, he comes off as just that guy. And Jimbo Fisher, give him credit, man. Aggressive, knew exactly what needed to happen, making that move from Florida State to Texas A&M. And now, wow, just the fact that he backed it up last year, that talk that they're going to beat Alabama, and then went out and did it. And now, number one in recruiting, and clearly having Nick Saban talking about it. I think it's the ultimate compliment in college football right now. The ultimate compliment. Just like I think the York County Gamecock Club fans saw it as the ultimate compliment for Shane Beamer to attend their event last night. That's all he had to do. Show up. What's the Keanu Reeves line, right? 90% of life is showing up. Never saw that movie, by the way. I heard it was pretty good. A little baseball movie. I forget what the name of it is. Maybe it's not Benchwarmers. I don't think that one's it. Sorry about that if I'm screwing that up and confusing you this morning. But just wanted to start with the college football rant. Anytime we get the excuse to talk college football on this show, that's exactly what we're going to do. And more of the details kind of discussed last night about the 25-person signing limit. It's the NCAA eliminating that, and Shane Beamer commenting on that, and the NCAA opening things up a little bit, making an actual adjustment with the transfer portal and name, image, and likeness, I think. And going to be interesting to see now how college football programs adjust. Obviously makes it more convenient, might be the best way to put that, for college coaches in a certain way, right? But then also you gotta really get out there and be ready to make a move. And I'm hoping that this does not present the old challenges before this 25-man class. And I think, unfortunately, the 25-man limit of signing a 25-person class, right, 25-man class each year, Well, a lot of times we saw that up close and personal a few times where guys would be given offers, committed, and then those numbers, when it comes down to actual signing day and making those things official, well, the school realizes that, yeah, they got a few more guys that committed than they thought would, or than they can take, and they just basically cut a kid, or they say, hey, we're going to gray shirt you, which means you can't play next year. Wait, I know we committed to you and you committed to us, but guess what? That's going to change a little bit. And awful, awful situations for kids. I hope maybe this will keep that from happening. But what I don't want to see happen is, because it's more wide open now, that guys commit, schools throw the offers out there, the last minute you get a transfer maybe that you didn't expect to, maybe a high school kid that you didn't expect to get in there, and that same type of situation happens. I think maybe at least this time they'll bring them all in and let them fight it out on the field, which is a much better situation than just completely jobbing a kid and his family at the last second and not allowing him to come to your program, not honoring your commitment, which just kind of despicable from the college sports perspective, especially when you're supposed to be helping mold young people into men, and then you go back on your word, and clearly that's not what you represent. It's all about winning and the money and the whole thing. So plenty to discuss in the college football world. Keep you updated again on the PGA Championship as I look at it right now. Again, Max Homa and Will Zalatoris tied to the top of the lead early on in round number 1 at 3 under. Xander Schauffele, Kevin Streelman, Rory McIlroy, all part of the group. One shot off the lead, tied for third. John Daly at 1 under. Tiger Woods and Jordan Spieth. Bubba Watson also 1 under, tied for ninth now in the early action out in Oklahoma. Love it. Absolutely love the major championship golf. Also love when we have guests on. Appreciate everybody's willingness and just volunteering to come on the program. David Smith is one of those guys, the Pelion High School basketball coach and official, longtime official in South Carolina. What'd you tell me the other day, David? Was it 34 years your career has spanned? Is that right, in high school sports?
That's correct. 34 years. And I'm going to try one more year next year, and we'll see what happens. And next May, I'll make another decision.
Attaboy. Yeah, 1 year at a time, man. Take it 1 year, one day at a time, 1 year at a time.
Yes, sir.
We got a backdrop back there too. You're going pro on us, aren't you? Through the frame.
No, that's the greatest rivalry in collegiate sports. Okay, you want to guess what the greatest rivalry in collegiate sports is?
Let's see. I'm trying to look at the picture, and I got a little glare there. That's going to be
Well, I mean, that's right. You're getting a little context clues. I just asked you what your opinion is on the greatest rivalry in college sports.
Greatest? Are we talking about a specific game or just across the board, school versus school?
We can go both, and then I'll elaborate a little bit on my opinion.
Okay. If I got to go one football rivalry, I'm going Army Navy as the.
Oh my Lord, that's on the bucket list for sure. Have you been?
Never been.
Have you been yet?
No, have not. And I think about wanting to go, and then when I actually watch the game and I see the snow or whatever, I'm like, I'm kind of good watching this on TV. Actually,
speaking of that, and giving Pelion High School football a plug, we've got 2 of our football players that were 21 graduates that are on the roster. DeShantez Gray, a defensive end, Will Jeffcoat, an offensive tackle, both played in our region championship 2 years ago, and they are freshmen at West Point now. We have another Noah Holland, who played center and linebacker for us. He's going to West Point. He's the son of our head football coach, athletic director, Dan Holland. He's going to West Point next year. So we've got 3 kids from our football and athletics department that are headed to West Point. And that speaks highly of what's going on over here in northern Lexington County.
No doubt about it. So I'm guessing then you're going to come back at me, though. I appreciate you letting that be in the conversation, but what are you going to tell me now is the best rivalry in college sports?
Context clue, Thanksgiving Day.
Thanksgiving Day. Whew, okay.
You're probably right when you started your career, probably at the tip of this.
That was Texas and Texas A&M back in the day, right? Is that where
Oh
we're going?
my
No.
Lord, you're way wrong with it. It's also in South Carolina.
Oh, okay. Oh, so you're going? Is that Newberry and PC? Is that where you're going on me?
Bronze Derby,
There it
Thanksgiving
is.
Day,
Okay.
greatest rivalry ever. Hey, greatest lunch ever before the game. And PC always typically had the upper hand since that's where I played and graduated from. I'm not even sure Newberry ever beat us in the Bronze Derby. I can't recall any of the games that they did, but they were a worthy opponent. And be honest with you, Newberry has stepped ahead of Presbyterian athletically. Disappointing to me, and hopefully our football program is headed in the right track now. After we now have a coach that will punt the football on fourth down occasionally, since we scored 70 points last year, but gave up 84 per game. So that still equates to a loss. But
Yeah, that's rough, man.
yeah,
I
Tim.
love the novel approach that Kevin Kelly offered. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
didn't work out for him there, Presbyterian. Good stuff there, Newberry Presbyterian, and as we bring in John Combs as well from over at Westwood High School, we got a full house right now. John, how are you this morning, sir?
I'm doing great. How are all y'all doing today?
Fantastic. Dave was just
Good
telling
morning, John.
the Bronze Derby and PC and Newberry and the whole thing. Are you going to put Carolina Clemson slightly above that one? I'm guessing college rival.
For me, I am. I'm going to put it up a little bit above that one, although my wife is a PC graduate. So, that's a big rivalry to her.
No doubt about it, man. And it was a shame that they ended that thing. Have they got that thing back going, David, or are they still, because of the different divisions, can't do it right now? Huh?
Well, yeah, PC is Division III football right now, which is kind of blasphemy to us football alumni. But so they're still not in that league with Newberry football wise yet. But you're right, 22 miles apart, similar schools philosophy wise, enrollment wise. They've got to play. They've got to play.
Well, I mean that is kind of Texas and Texas A&M, I think, on the large scale, and then hopefully
Yes,
that's going to get going now that Texas is heading to the SEC. We can discuss all of that maybe another day. Wanted to start with what you guys are dealing with currently as high school basketball coaches, and some rule adjustments, or at least they're kind of introducing that shot clock deal. David, I know you wanted to weigh in on that, especially. What is your opinion of the shot clock in high school basketball, just to kind of in general to start?
Well, I stated that I was more of a traditionalist with the ability to dictate your tempo. And I've got a bunch of guys that probably I don't even want to say against it. I think we just got to learn that there's two different ways to play and kind of see where it goes from there. But I've been at 4A Berkeley with obviously a lot more staff than we have here at 2A Pelion. And I just know on a consistent basis on a Tuesday night or a Wednesday night or whatever you're playing your game during the weekday, you get that text about 12 or 1 o'clock saying, can you find somebody to keep the scoreboard for us? I had something come up. I've got to get my nails done. I'm being sarcastic about that, but it's always the different excuse. And then you're scrambling at 1 o'clock to try to find somebody, not only to keep the most important piece of equipment, but now we've got another piece of equipment that you've got to train. And I think your staff would be a little bit more limited because you just can't put anybody on a shot clock. I think it's going to be a little bit more technical, and John maybe could speak a little bit more on the ins and outs of it. Do y'all already have that at your school, John?
No, we're in the process of ordering one, but we don't have one yet.
So, yes, sir. So he might not even be sure of, how much training it's going to take. What's the signal from the referees? Is it going to be like NBA where they pump it up to reset it? I'm not sure either if they even have a mechanic yet because it hasn't been used yet in South Carolina High School League. But I'm not totally against it. I just don't agree with all the arguments that's being made. The one that I had the biggest problem was with player development. I believe player development is done during the summer and at practice with ball drills, dribbling, all of that. I think your player development argument, and that's not even, I don't even know if that's John's argument, but I've heard that one before. That's the one I disagree with. And I also asked to document the number of possessions that you have in a high school game with the kid we have nowadays, of how many actually go over 30 seconds, because even in my school, and we're down in basketball right now, as I've got impatient kids, and they want to take the first shot. You might get a better shot 4 or 5 passes later, even within that 30-second framework. But, kids today just want to jack up the first shot that they have that it looks decent, or dribble drive, or whatever may be the case. But I'm not totally against it. I just want to see some data that says that we probably need it in the high school game.
John, what do you think, man?
Well, I will tell you, I do think high school basketball can use a shot clock. I do think it will help improve the game over time. Now, Coach Smith talked about needing it. I mean, we'd still have a great game with the shot clock or not. Just because we had a shot clock doesn't automatically mean we're going to, if we don't have a shot clock, doesn't mean we won't have a good game. But to Coach Smith's point, we participated in a summer team camp a couple of years ago that had a shot clock. And we didn't practice using it at all during the game. And I will tell you, over the course of that game, it came into play one time. That's it. Now, that being said, I do think it will come into play late game situations, whether you're holding the ball, not holding the ball, foul. But I will use to make a good radio here, podcast. I do believe player development is a part of this. I do believe it will help from the standpoint of it will help guys understand, I will use the comment, all right, you really going to shoot that shot that early in the shot clock? And guys, I think they will understand that. And you try to develop them, from that particular way. I would even use the point where, developing them for the next level. Now, I don't want a shot clock because we're trying to develop kids to play college, because there's a small group of kids that will actually get to play college basketball. But I do think over time, the quality of play will get better with the shot clock. But to Coach Smith's point, I mean, just because we're at a 4A level, we still get people texting us maybe at 12 noon, maybe not about the nails part, but we'll still get some, it's still not easy to find people in clocks. So that's certainly issues we got to address.
So David, from a philosophical standpoint, it doesn't sound like you're completely against this thing. Maybe just the practical institution of it, especially to begin with, has you most concerned. Is that fair?
Well, that's fair. And I also, I was thinking back, and I'm not sure how old John is, but I remember in 1979, February 24th, when Duke beat North Carolina 47-40, and the score was 7-0 at half. And I can specifically remember that score. And I watched that game, some highlights of it recently, and it wasn't even so much they were holding the ball. It was almost like Duke was just content to sit back in this little 2-3. They tried to jump the pass kind of on the high post a little bit, but it was just weird that they were kind of and I assume North Carolina at the time, I didn't do a study on how good the teams were, how bad they were. I assume North Carolina thought they were heavy underdogs, but they still lost the contest, by employing that strategy. But I'm saying that's just part of historical basketball, and I just like the fact. Once again, I agree with you. I'm not totally against it, but I just like the fact that we can choose our style of play versus, being forced by the 30-second clock, even though I kind of hurt my arguments by saying that I don't think it would even affect the game that much because of, the impatience of kids. But and John, I think he would agree with this, is that it does take some skill to hold the ball, because you end up usually when you're holding it, you get turnovers because kids are kind of doing something they're not totally used to. And they're trying to, instead of dribble drive, they're trying to just dribble vertically, and not attack the basket. And you end up getting a turnover after you've held the ball maybe 45 seconds instead of, 30 seconds. But no, sir, I'm not totally against it. I would like to experiment with it and see how it affects the high school game. So
just for clarity standpoint, John, how is it going to be instituted this year specifically? I think I saw it where it's kind of is it going to be the rule across the board for this year, and they're just going to evaluate it after that? Is that where we're at in high school?
No, it's only going to be used for selected showcase events and invitational tournaments, and that's if they want to use it. So I will imagine the Chick-fil-A Classic, the Basketball Bash, other events, they'll choose to do it if they want, but it's not mandatory. And so it's for a 2-year period, and just to get a little bit of data in on it, see if it's something we like. But, to Coach Smith's point also, I mean, this isn't just about players. This is about officials too. Officials have to be trained on it. Us coaches got to learn the rules. Like, I don't know all of the rules of an NFHS shot clock. Like in the NBA and I even think college now, there's not a 5-second closely guarded call. But I still think in NFHS, there is a 5-second closely guarded thing. So there's still certain rules like, well, what happens if it hits the rim and then it goes out of bounds? Where do you reset it to? There's still a lot of rules about that. I don't know.
Yes, certainly a lot of details to be worked out there. I think from a fan's perspective, let me give you that one. Someone who just watches the game of basketball, I'm for a shot clock in that you're going to get more shots. You're going to get more guys going to the basket. That player development deal, I understand what you're saying, David, that it doesn't necessarily make it a complete tool to develop players in the whole thing. But don't you think over a course of a season that guys having to make a play at the end of the shot clock is going to be better for the game as opposed to especially when you see a team get a lead and just hold that thing or try to milk the clock and at the end of the ball game? Don't you think that's going to help players in the long run in the big picture?
I will say that I will have to see that. Okay, I'm not saying that it isn't, but I just would like to see it. Because once again, I repeat what I said. It does take some skill to hold the ball because of the closely guarded count and the jumps and the traps and all that you're seeing to combat that. Is it's not as easy as you think, and because actually when that jump comes, that when two people are guarding you, obviously we talk all the time, is that somebody's open and you better be able to find that person rather than dribbling with your head down. And working on your one-on-one game and your one-on-one skills. Now spacing and all like that, it could help your spacing a little bit because you've got to run more sets within the 30 seconds to try to get you a shot. John, have you thought about that? I mean, are you going to try to get a shot within 20 seconds so that you get a chance? What have you thought about the strategy at all, or not really?
I have not thought a ton about the strategy other than because, I mean, to me, it's also a defensive strategy. I mean, I've heard of colleges, they do things like, all right, we're going to do this. We'll switch all screens under 5 seconds to go in the shot clock. So there's a lot to think about. I know the good coaches will figure it out. They'll figure out how to use it to their advantage and develop it with their players. I mean, they'll figure it out. Coach Tim Whipple at Irmo, he was kind of very similar to you, I think, David, about kind of not necessarily for it, not necessarily against it, but just do we really need it? Of course, I want to be somewhat of more of a lazier coach because I want to. If we have a lead with 2 minutes to go, I don't want to have to try to hold the ball with 2 minutes because to Coach's point, it's hard to hold the ball for that length of time. It is not an easy thing. I mean, I think we've won a couple of games this particular year where, hey, if it's 2 minutes to go in the game, we got an 8-point lead. Let's take our time getting a good shot. And, there is a lot of skill to holding the ball, and it's not easy at all.
Well, it'll be really interesting to see, especially, how we think about these things philosophically and then how they're instituted. And nobody wants the game to be disrupted with technical issues or anything like that, but there are going to be some hiccups for sure. But that just kind of comes with any evolution. To me, this is kind of a natural next step with the technology available. And now it's a matter of actually implementing it, right? And like you guys said, educating everybody, making sure everybody's on the same page. You got the shot clock operator, you got the officials, the whole thing. And I understand, David, your reservations about that for sure. I'm just I'm hopeful, I'm optimistic that it can make the game better overall. I guess that leads me to the question, David, where do you think high school basketball is as we sit here in 2022 versus other years in your experience? Do you feel like it's healthier, not as healthy? Where are you at?
Like I said, I've been in it a while, and the ability level of these kids has jumped out the ceiling. I'm seeing a lot better player. I'm not sure that I've seen as a dedicated to team basketball player. I drawn the charge, those kind of things. I'm not seeing that quite as much. We reward our kids here at Pelion with Chick-fil-A biscuits if they draw a charge. So there's a high. Am I back?
I hear you, Coach Smith.
Yes, sir. I don't know where I got interrupted at. I don't know what last thing I was talking about. Drawing a charge, maybe.
Yeah, with your chicken biscuit.
Yes, sir. Yeah, and everybody wants to get a chicken biscuit, but I said I think the ability of the players is much better. I'd say probably if you rated 1 to 10, probably we're at about a 8.5 compared to maybe a 7 something in the past. But skill level has gone up, and is that what you're seeing, Coach Combs?
Yeah, I mean, I've struggled with trying to teach guys how to draw charges too. I mean, I've certainly struggled with that. You know, I've had some guys be great at it, but I haven't had. I want to figure that out.
Yes,
I
sir.
do think the game of basketball is different because, you know, there's so many different options of where guys can go to school. AAU is certainly a bigger thing now than what it was, say, when I was growing up in the 90s. But I do think the athletes are better. They're better shooters now from the outside.
No doubt.
You know, I mean, back in the day, you know, I think you could sit back in a zone and there wasn't as many high-level three-point shooters. Nowadays, I'm seeing guys can really, really shoot the ball well. I don't know what you see.
Well, I agree with you 100%. Is that you could be sit back in the zone and get your 2 people around the big man and try to survive for 3.5 quarters and win the game in the 4th quarter. But they'll shoot you out of a zone quick like now because most teams not only have one shooter and you gimmick defenses could maybe box in one somebody, but now everybody's got 2 scores. So you got to worry about that second score. You know, and I agree with you 100%. Is that because number one, when you go into any gym in South Carolina in PE and throw a ball out, and they're going to shoot a 3-point shot first, whereas our coaches taught us to get up under the basket, start the mic and drill, and then work your way out. Now the game is started from the way out, and they may accidentally shoot a layup if they catch the ball from a friend near the rim. But they're going to definitely shoot that 3-point shot because it's glamorized now, and you know that.
Well, to me, it's all about statistics too. I mean, I knew Coach Fogler when I was there at the University of South Carolina in the mid-90s. He always talked about points per possession, percentages. You know, 33% from 3 is just as good as 50% from 2 mathematically. Nowadays, guys are getting to the point where they're shooting 40%, 38%, 40%. So that's still better than shooting. That's mathematically better than shooting 50% from 2. There's another stat I saw on Twitter the other day. Matter of fact, a former NBA official showed it to me when I was working at AU camp this weekend. The top 200 shots that NBA players took in the 90s and what the top 200 shot locations now is completely different. They're all either right at the rim now or at the 3-point line. Whereas back in the 90s, the top 200 shot locations were kind of all over the map. So even NBA guys are starting to realize mathematically we either shoot right at the hoop or shoot a 3-point shot because statistically it's a better shot for those guys that can make it. Now, if you can't shoot, then you don't need to be out.
So you're saying the mid-range and the elbow jumper is coming obsolete, so to speak.
Yeah, well, it's just I don't want to say obsolete because I still think there's a place for it. But if you're looking statistically at NBA guys and where they're shooting, it's not in the top 200 locations of where they like to shoot.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. Yes, sir.
Well, and thank you guys for keeping this thing going. I think I've worked the technical issues out there. What I'm hearing now, if you didn't bring his name up, then I think it's the Steph Curry effect in basketball, right? I mean, that is what it is for everybody watching the game, and it only makes sense that it's happening for the kids playing the game. How much do you guys have to fight against that?
Well, for me, if a guy can shoot like Steph Curry, then make like Steph. Let me back up. Make like Steph Curry.
Right.
He can do that all day long. Now, if he's shooting, I mean, I've had to have conversations with guys before. They'd come in and they want to shoot more. I was like, look here, man, you're 1 of 19 from 3. You know, there's a reason why you've been open in those games. So let's pump the brakes on it. And most of the time when guys see that, they understand. You know, if I got a guy, and I've had guys before shooting 35, 40% from 3. When you shoot 35, 40% from 3, if you shoot a couple of bad shots along the way, I can live with that because over time you've made a decision. Over time, you've shown you can make those shots.
What about you, David?
I agree with it's kind of like and I tell them the money in the bank theory. If certain players have money in the bank and they're allowed to take a bad shot, and certain players don't have money in the bank, and the next sound they need to listen for is the horn, because the horn is going to have them sitting beside me for a while. Yes, sir. Exactly.
Yeah. Go get them, Frank Martin. Like,
Yeah,
exactly.
gone real quick, huh? So I feel like as we were discussing that, don't you think the Michael Jordan effect was just wanting guys to go to the basket and dunk, right? Back in the day, I feel like maybe this 30 years ago was high school coaches having to actually drill into their own players that, hey, you can't just go and try to dunk on every single play. And that's not what basketball is all about. We're not about dunk contests and the whole thing. And now you guys have to do it from a different angle. Do you think that's fair, or am I oversimplifying maybe the previous generation's challenges from your perspective?
I think you got to make sure, and he talked about this. John talked about this a little bit. I think you got to make sure to define the roles for the kids and make sure they understand what their athletic ability is. My junior year, my job was to deliver the ball to the post to a guy named Holstein, and 15 to 20 times from the two guard position. That was my job. My senior year became 1-2, and my job was to shoot the ball 15, 20. It was very simple. He explained it very clearly to me what my role was. And that junior year, if I shot too many times instead of taking the ball to the post, he probably was going to have a stern talking to me about so good defensively. He was going to keep me on the floor because of defense, but it was not going to be an enjoyable conversation. But and I know he does the same thing, is that make sure they know their roles. And even with that conversation of knowing their roles, is you have kids that sometimes still like to pretend like they're somebody else, create this shot or this difficult dribble drive, this pass that's unnecessary, and all that comes with evolution and maturity as a basketball player too, and put them in that situation time after time after time so that they get better. But that's my opinion on it.
No, you bring up some good points, Coach. I'm going to ask y'all a question. Like I'm going to treat y'all like I'm at a practice. Who should have the best field goal percentage on the team? On any
Biggest
team?
dude. Biggest dude. The biggest dude. The guy shooting the shortest shots.
Well, yes, sir. My 5. Yep.
Yep. To me, it's the guy's the worst shooter. The worst shooter should have the best percentage because he understands his role. His role is to shoot shots that he's going to make every single time. And to me, that's where I bring statistics in the game. Like I said earlier, if you can make the shots at a decent enough clip, we'll let you shoot it. You earned it. You know, to me, I also talk about a driver's license. It's kind of a license to shoot. You earned a license. If you're irresponsible with it, we're going to revoke that thing and take it away. But if guys can dunk, they're going to go up and dunk it. If they can shoot a little bit, they're going to, well, everybody thinks they can shoot a little bit. As Coach Glimp used to say, we need makers, not shooters.
Yeah. Interesting that you bring up the math too, and having that relationship, the formative years with Eddie Fogler being a math guy. I think it's interesting that Frank Martin was a math guy. So it sounds like, John, that's how you approach the coaching perspective as well. Is that fair?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, statistics aren't everything, but like I said, if you can make at a high clip, then we'll let you do it. Turnovers percentages per game, free throw percentage, math is certainly a very important part of the game. As long as it equals with me having one more point than the other team, all the other math can work out.
David, what about you? Do you come at it from that mathematical perspective as well, or a little bit differently?
Well, I agree with the mathematical formula, but that dude that I was talking about, we had a dude that was so good at drawing charges. He drew 5 in one contest, and he was a defensive lineman in football. I'll go ahead and tell you that too, and he loved chicken biscuits. But in regard to that story is that I would allow him to make a few more mistakes with those statistics because he's drawing 5 charges a game. And it's unbelievable to me. John may not agree with me. The momentum change of drawing a charge on somebody that's going to the basket, fixing to do a big dunk or some fancy layup. They make the basket and it's disallowed because somebody had the guts to stand in there and take it in the chest, take the charge and go the other direction. It's an unbelievable momentum changer, not only just a great defensive basketball play, but, and I'd say, like I said, for statistic purposes, this guy, he wasn't a great scorer, But I tell you what, he could pump fake and get people off the ground, and he could draw a charge. So he stayed in the game a little bit longer because of the intangibles that he brought to the game, the Dennis Rodman type numbers that he could bring to the game.
Well, all coaches love that, right, John? The drawing the charge is at the top of the list for coaches.
100%. I mean, when you draw a charge, that's a turnover for the other team. So
Exactly.
that's just as valuable. No, that's extremely valuable.
So drawing the charge is at the top of the list. I'm guessing a block shot is way down on the list, right? As I was thinking about defensive momentum shifters, like you get a big block, the crowd reacts usually. But if you block it out of bounds, I always thought that was one of the dumbest plays ever, right? Oh, they just get to do it again. It's not that impactful when it comes to the actual game, unless you're starting to then affect future shots, and then it can be a big deal. I think that's where you're going with that, John.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you have a 6'10" guy down there, I mean, and he sends a couple of shots, I don't want to say it's game over, but it mentally really, really challenges the other team. We played teams before that they were so tall down there. You go down there, you get a clean look, but the problem is it's in your back of your mind that he's going to block the shot. I think that's what Georgetown coach John Thompson told Patrick Ewing one time in a game. He told Patrick, just go ahead and block the shot. Goaltend, I don't care. And It just sends a message. But most guys aren't 6'10" that we run across. And, shot blocking is overrated to a point. I mean, I don't want a guard to be a shot blocker. That's because they do leave their feet, and you do give up defensive positioning.
Yeah, David, I'm guessing you got that challenge.
With that said, from a high school league official standpoint, they sometimes don't know how to call the clean block, okay? And you get a foul called, and you don't have the depth that some teams have, and you get one or two of your guys in foul trouble because of, I don't want to say poor calls, but it's just they're just not used to calling the clean block versus the ball got the hand. I mean, a lot of people don't understand that in high school basketball, the shooter is protected until he returns to the floor. So a lot of people think that we got the clean block, but if there's any contact made before he returns to the floor, then it technically is a foul. Now, a lot of officials I will tell you, they're getting better with not calling that if it doesn't have anything to do with the play, but you still got some old school guys like myself that probably still call that, a foul, even though it doesn't have anything to do with the play. And you get yourself in foul trouble because everybody's getting shot block happy. I'll tell you this is, the people that enjoy the shot blockers are the people that are up in the stands and aren't willing to come to practice and all. And they're jumping all about the floor because they see a shot block, because that's the most exciting point of basketball. But to us coaches, it really is overrated, as John said.
I'm interested, John. Now you have a not just a coach here, but an official's perspective as well. What's typically your biggest frustration with the officiating in high school basketball these days?
First of all, I have great respect with officials. It's interesting you asked that question. I worked an AAU camp this past weekend in Atlanta, Georgia, and while that was going on, there was a high-level basketball officials camp going on at the same time. And you may not notice that Justin Mackey, that played at South Carolina, is now working to become a basketball official. And just listening to officials talk and listening to the nuances that they're looking for. I mean, we're talking this was ACC, former NBA guys that were running the camp, just getting a chance to talk to them. First of all, we as coaches and we as fans, everybody's got to treat officials better, to the point so we can get guys that want to come in and do the game. When you got people up in the stands just raining down insults in a B team game, a JV game, middle school game, I mean, is that really going to entice anybody to want to be a basketball official? No. My biggest thing when I'm coaching is, A, are they consistent? And B, are they making good effort? Are they running up and down the court? I can't stand it when I see an official call a call that's 80 feet away and, when they didn't run up and down the court like they're supposed to. Consistency and effort, to me, is my biggest things.
Yeah, David, it sounds like you might be on the same in the same vein there. I can't imagine how you interact with officials knowing that you are one and then still a head coach at the same time. How does that balance work with you?
Well, I've heard this story before. is that they said at halftime, they said, don't argue with him too much because he knows what he's talking about. Okay. Because some of the, like, one guy on the crew will know that I'm an ex-official and the other two don't. And the other two were talking to me about stuff that I know where their eyes should be. They've got certain triangles and certain areas that they're supposed to be looking at. Like, one official supposed to be looking at the opposite side of the lane on free throws, and he calls a violation on his side of the lane. And they try to convince me that that's the way it's supposed to be done, and I know that it's not. And basically, I tell them, I said, please don't lie to me here. I know the answer to the question, I said. And then at halftime, they come out and they start treating me differently because they found out that he actually does know what he's talking about as far as that's concerned. Now, don't know whether I can coach. I don't know whether I can officiate, but I know where they're supposed to be. But reiterating, John, if you remember, Tim, I talked about that last week. The most frustrating thing was a guy's supposed to be on the baseline, and he's not even at the free throw line yet, okay? And I will tell you this, and John knows this too, is some of them can't get there. Okay. Some of them are trying, but they can't get there because we're so short right now that we've got an older official that's legs have just given out on them. And I'm going to cut that guy slack because I know how tired and how old and how sore some of your legs can get. But and we do need high school officials. And John just made the comment is we've got to be replacing them with younger guys, and those insults in the B team games and the JV games where they are working right now are not going to help them entice them to say, I'm actually getting screamed at and insulted for $40-something a game. You know, no, I'll go deliver packages for Amazon and not get yelled at.
Yeah, I remember reading a book about old ACC coaches when Bobby Cremins was at Georgia Tech, and this is John Feinstein book, I think, way back in the day, and he was just talking about how Cremins was probably the nicest to officials and would only get on them what you guys are talking about if it was an effort issue, if it was, you know, not being in the right position, and if they were, he'd tell the officials, even on tough call. I remember this one sticks out in my head for some reason, like, I know you tried your best. I know you did your best there. And John, what you're saying, man, about the challenge to recruit officials across the board these days in 2022, I think it's really important for coaches, especially to lay that foundation of respect and appreciating guys actually being out there just to help any game out, right?
100%. I'm sure there's probably a couple of officials laughing at the fact that I said that, because there's been times I've been less than probably nice, although I'm trying to work. I haven't gotten a technical foul in a couple of years, so I'm trying to be good with that. But we just got to make it a good work environment, because we've got to get younger guys that want to call games, because COVID has knocked a lot of guys out. So it's a challenge, and it's a hard game to call. I mean, it's not an easy game at all to call. I still remember when me and Jeff DiBattisto, who was a student manager, a friend of mine, is now the athletic director at Spring Valley, we went to go work a basketball camp up at the University of Cincinnati. We thought we were going to work a youth kids basketball camp, and we were only sophomores in college. Well, we got there, and it was a team camp, and they said, all right, you two guys are going to go officiate a basketball game. And they stuck us with the 5A state champions versus the 4A state champions in the very first game. Me and Jeff has never called a game ever. And it was awful. It was so bad. Matter of fact, the coaches stopped the game in the middle of it because we just weren't doing anything. We were just insanely bad. And that's when my level of appreciation and respect for officials went up, because it is such a hard game. It can be a physically demanding sport.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. I always feel like the loudest critic of officials is probably would be the worst if the roles were reversed, and you almost want to pull fans out there and say, hey, man, you go try it. You go do it for about 10 seconds, and then you might change your attitude and the whole thing. Guys, really appreciate the time today. The shot clock discussion, we'll definitely continue that. I know this is going to evolve in the state of South Carolina with the showcases here in the next couple of years, and then maybe will become a rule, maybe not. And I think that there are solid arguments, certainly on both sides of that thing, and it'll kind of play out before our eyes. I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to having you guys back on, and appreciate your time today.
Great. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, John and Tim. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. John Combs over at Westwood High School, David Smith at Pelion High School. Appreciate them popping it on the show today. And shot clock in high school basketball. I haven't thought about it that much. other than, yeah, we should probably have that. That's what basketball is. I'm old enough to remember the old 45-second shot clock in college, and now that how it's evolved, I think it's been for the betterment of the game. But doing it on a high school level is a different challenge altogether. Guy knows a bunch about high school sports down in Charleston right now. Scott Eisberg, WCIV-TV sports director. Scotty, what do you think? You for a basketball shot clock overall?
Yeah, I'm for anything that just speeds up the pace of play at a basketball game. I just think basketball's become insufferable. So many timeouts, the fouling, the overcoaching at the end of a game just makes it. I mean, if you're a sports fan and right now you watch the Stanley Cup playoffs every night, and to see the last 5 minutes of a game, how awesome it is because there's no stoppages of play. Now I know that's not a shot clock thing, but I hate stoppages of play over and over and over again. Watch a hockey game and how beautiful it is at the end of a game, 5 minutes of just straight hockey. That to me is exciting. The stop, go, stop, go, stop, go is not exciting. And of course, without a shot clock, it's just going to cause teams to foul more, to turn the ball over and everything like that.
You're working in hockey again on us, aren't you? How about that?
I love working. Yeah, I love working in hockey. Yeah.
Just first few seconds. So are you a converted Rangers guy now? Is that where you are?
No.
Okay.
No. I'm a big Colorado Avalanche guy now, just because I'm pretty good buddies with their head coach Jared Bednar, who's lives here in Charleston in the off season, played for the Stingrays, coached the Stingrays, has been here ever since, and so I know Jared really, really well, and so we text pretty often. So the fact that he's got the number one team in the NHL right now is pretty awesome. Like I'm all in on the Abs train this year.
And Jason asking, what do you think about the Islanders hiring Lane Lambert?
I like it. I mean, to elevate an assistant is fine. I mean, I didn't think they should have fired Barry Trotz, but I think he'll be employed in the next week. I would assume he'll go to Winnipeg, but I didn't think they should have fired Barry Trotz. I think they should have given him a little longer, but I think Lambert is fine. I'm fine with that hire.
So, are you going to be one of those guys that argues the NHL playoffs are it's the best version of sports? You put it at the top.
Absolutely, yeah, no doubt. If any series, obviously. Some things are not a series. The Super Bowl is not a series, or the final round of the Masters is not a series. But as far as series go, a series sport, I think it's better than anything else. I mean, I love the Stanley Cup playoffs. There is just an intensity in those games that is at a level that is just beyond anything else. Those guys are playing so hard and are so beat up by the end of it, and then to see them, line up and shake hands on the ice after the game, after the series is the great thing.
Yeah, that last part is what stuck out to me watching the overtime Game 7 winner for the Rangers against the Penguins and the celebration and the whole thing. But then the genuine respect shown on both sides. And to me, that's the best example in sports. I agree with you on that one of sportsmanship, competition, the whole thing. I'm with you from that perspective. I guess my question is now, how can we get other sports kind of on board? And it didn't even dawn on me that just the stoppage of play in the NBA specifically, we see it in college basketball too.
It's insufferable. I mean,
but it's bled over to other sports too, right? College baseball and the replays. The replay in college baseball is I put that at the top of the list of most frustrating thing from a fan standpoint.
It's just, we're in a generation now where patience is not common. We don't have patience because we're all about instant gratification. We want to be on Twitter, so it's bang, 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 bang. We're constantly getting things. We can get our news in no time at all.
Hey, we're on Twitter right now, Scotty. Easy.
Right.
Don't get us kicked off of Twitter right now.
We want answers quickly. We want satisfaction quickly, and we want to just see it unfold. I just think I understand why coaches do what they do in basketball, but I mean, I think the only way to stop that is give teams less timeouts and take away fouls. You foul out at 4 fouls, then that's going to stop guys from fouling nonstop at the end of a game. If you take away a timeout or two from the teams, they have too many. I mean, when you have the media timeouts plus the coaches' timeouts, what is that, 3.5? That's a ton of stoppages of play, and there's no fluidity at the end of a game. It's almost like you go, oh, when it's a close game at the end, because it's so tough to watch in basketball. It's just constantly foul timeout, foul timeout, foul timeout. There's no fluidity. You watch a hockey game and just that excitement just builds at the end of a game. It's all out. They pull the goalie. It's 6-on-5. They're just trying to get that one past the goalie, to tie the game or whatever it may be. There's nothing like that type of excitement. To me, there's nothing like that type of excitement in sports.
Selling the hockey today. Scott
I am,
Eisberg, ladies and gentlemen. Good for you, man. Let's bring it back, maybe back closer to South Carolina and what's going on today, specifically with the Gamecocks starting their last series of the season, having just lost to Charlotte 26-25. You covered all the national championships, and you've covered a Gamecock baseball for a long, long time, man. To me, that Charlotte game that we just saw most recently, where they're up 3-0 and cruising, and then end up losing 8-3, their 10th non-conference loss of the season. That sums up this year by and large, but I think it's summed up the Mark Kingston kind of era to me, that you just can't do that when you're Gamecock baseball. You can't lose those games that frequently.
Yeah, I had a long talk with our radio partner down here, Bobby Harton, and
Great Bobby Harton. How dare you?
Yeah, the legendary Bobby Harton. No, Bobby. I mean, Bobby is an unabashed Gamecocks fan. I mean, he is as unabashed as it is. He loves the game. He's a former Gamecocks cheerleader. But when I saw him put out the Twitter poll the other day, did we just see Mark Kingston coach his last game in Columbia? I couldn't help but think maybe. And I listened to a little bit of your thing with Stewart yesterday, and I love Stewart Lake. He's one of my favorite people in the world. The Stew crew is always a fun team to cover at Charleston Southern. I just think Stewart gets it as far as being completely engaged with the community. He was very engaged with the community down here. He's always on radio shows or whatever it may be, podcasts. I just don't feel like Kingston's overly engaged. I don't feel like I know him, and I don't know the guy. I've met him twice. I don't know him, but I feel like people down here don't know Mark Kingston as well as a Ray Tanner or a Chad Holbrook when they were the head coach at South Carolina. I don't know if he's just embraced being the Shane Beamer-like figurehead that is just shaking hands, kissing babies everywhere he goes. I just don't know if he's that engaged. And, I think part of it is, you've got a ton of high school coaches down here who are Gamecock fans. I don't know if they truly know Mark Kingston yet. And baseball's a different sport. I know it's not football. It's not the flagship. But in the springtime, it is the flagship for your school. So, I was just like, he wasn't making excuses the other night after the Charlotte game, but it wasn't like I don't know, the emotion just seems like a cutoff there with the emotion. Like it was just a business-like press conference. We're on to the next one. We're on to Florida. Then we're on to the SEC tournament. Like, I don't know. Maybe there's just a stoppage in that, like between business and emotion. And, I think I personally like to see a coach that truly shows their emotion. You saw it from Ray Tanner all the time. Ray Tanner, how many times did he break down crying in press conferences about one thing or another, whether it was Lonnie Chisenhall stealing from a locker or it was something baseball related? Ray Tanner's emotion was there, even with the blow up with Jack Leggett and the heated bats thing. Emotion was there with Ray Tanner. I felt like Chad Holbrook showed a lot of emotion. I just haven't seen that emotion from Mark Kingston. I think emotion is what draws a coach and a fan base together.
Well, you got to be who you are, right? The older I get, the more I subscribe to that. The more I repeat that. You got to be who you are. I don't think Kingston is an overly emotional kind of guy, so you can't fake it. And the counterpoint to that, Scotty, is Monty Lee, right? Monty Lee
Right.
is as South Carolina as you can possibly get. Grew up a Gamecock guy and ended up now that obviously in charge at Clemson, and it hadn't gone great either. And so I don't think it's necessarily a recipe problem. I think it's cooking that thing at the end, man. It's an execution deal, and you can come at it from different ways. And neither one of those guys, unfortunately, I think for the entire state of South Carolina, the baseball programs have fallen so far at Clemson and Carolina from what they used to be. It
Right.
was by far the best baseball rivalry in the country for what, 15 years or so. I mean, for a long time, to see it play out in Omaha and the whole deal. And it's sad for me and disappointing this time of year that we don't have that from the outside to kind of to latch onto and to watch these what turned out to be magical runs for both schools for a long time, man.
I agree with you, no doubt about it. And a part of that was, I think, was that there was kind of a salty relationship between Tanner and Leggett. I think that certainly fueled it. I mean, there's no question, like, they're not best friends. I think that fueled that rivalry being so great. There's no question about that. But you got to realize, like, people have said, like, I don't think this is a Mark Kingston being an outsider thing, because Ray Tanner's an NC State guy and Jack Leggett's from Maine. So it's not like they're, homegrown guys. Really, the only one that's a homegrown guy is Monty Lee in this whole thing, and he's coaching the other team. He's coaching the one that he didn't grow up rooting for. So, if it is just a a performance-based thing with Mark Kingston, the question you've got to ask yourself is, did he do a good enough job losing the two pitchers that he lost that they thought they would have this year? Bosnick being a big one. With those pitchers not being available, did Kingston do enough to tinker to, keep his job, or did he not? And, or do you just give him the benefit of the doubt because he did have an injury problem on the pitching staff? And then the other thing is it worth firing him for $2.2 million? I mean, that's a decision that you've got to make financially that I don't know the answer to.
Yeah, I don't think any of us on the outside knows that answer for sure at this point. It's going to be fascinating to see in the next couple of weeks. And with all that being said, still the opportunity, right, to make a late season run to go to Gainesville. You get a sweep there on the road. It would be monumental against the team that has, I think, 13th RPI in the country in Florida right now. You get on a run at the SEC tournament, which has very rarely, if ever, happened for South Carolina. You got those chances as we sit here on Thursday ahead of the final series of the regular season. So you mentioned Shane Beamer in there at some point about his personality and how he matches, how he gets out there and markets. And talking to Trey Dyson earlier this week, he mentioned what a great marketer Ray Tanner was. I never thought of it that way, but the latest example from Shane Beamer of how he fits so well with his job is a comment he made last night. I think just going up to the York County Gamecock Club and saying, I don't get why the former head coaches hadn't done that before. That's not going to happen anymore with the importance of Rock Hill being what it is in the football world, man. Scotty, this is just the latest example of how Shane gets it from the perspective of being a head coach at South Carolina.
Unquestionably. I mean, you got to go to every Gamecock Club meeting. If I'm, I wouldn't be surprised to see Shane Beamer go to those subsidiary game, not the Low Country, the Charleston Gamecock Club. I see him going to the Somerville one and the Moncks Corner one and the Walterboro one. Like, each of those towns have Gamecock clubs. They're not getting Shane Beamer on a typical, and I think a lot of that changed when they went from like the model of the rubber chicken dinners to the big, what do they call it, like Gamecock galas or whatever they call it, where it's just a huge thing and they bring a bunch of coaches. Like, I think part of that has to do with South Carolina, but you got to build it ground up, and I think Shane Beamer's got that in his blood, that he does that. He's got to do that. Dabo doesn't have to do that anymore. Dabo could show up at the 5 prowling growls and he's fine. Beamer's got to do that. And, you got to get, you got to dig out of that hole that Will Muschamp kind of put you in, as far as, glad handing people and really grassroots building a program. Because I don't think anyone's going to deny that Will Muschamp is a heck of a football coach. Like, X's and O's defensively, he's a heck of a coach, but I just didn't think the other parts of the job, he did an outstanding, job, just kind of bridging it. And in this state, you're chasing Dabo. You're chasing Dabo. I mean, Dabo never turns down an interview, never turns down a TV appearance. You got to do that. You got to get your brand out there and people talking about it. And so, part of me says Beamer is exactly what South Carolina needs. Now it's just, okay, are the X's and O's going to match up with the energy and the marketing? And if they do, then it's the recipe for great things.
Yeah, I was talking about that earlier this week, and that's where Muschamp missed. Like let's not be naive or completely overly critical. Like, the players that played for him really liked playing for him, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, you saw the guys in the secondary that jetted basically right after he was fired, kind of out of loyalty. But it was the other part, connecting with the fan base, like you're talking about, and the school in general, and creating the identity. That to me has been the most impressive part of Shane Beamer in the last 18 months since he took the job. The way that he's been able to kind of put his stamp on the University of South Carolina and differentiate the program with other SEC or national programs.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. And I don't think he's at the level now where, he can't be, pulling the Saban, Jimbo Fisher, stuff like that to really ruffle feathers. I think he's got to prove himself on the field for sure. And then I think he's going to be an enigmatic character in college football. You got to prove yourself on the field before all of the other things are what you're going to be known for. But if South Carolina continues to grow like they did last season, then I think that he's got the it factor. There's no doubt about that.
You mentioned Saban and Jimbo. What'd you make of that, man? To me, that's the ultimate compliment, really, that Jimbo is in Saban's head. If you're getting him complaining about what you're doing, and obviously losing.
Yeah, but Saban's in Jimbo's head too, because Jimbo called a press conference to address it, I think 20 minutes ago. I haven't watched it. I've been on with you since then, but I think that Saban's in Jimbo's head as well. And
Saban's in everybody's head in college football.
Yeah, nothing better than a pissing match in the SEC. There's no doubt about that. There's nothing better than a pissing match between two coaches. So I'm all in for that. I got no problem with that whatsoever. That comedian, what's the online guy that Joey got? What's his name? Joey.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
he already put a thing out this morning with Saban and Jimbo going back and forth, and then he ends it with Brian Kelly in his Louisiana accent trying to settle the feud. It's pretty funny.
Oh, fantastic, man! I mean, again, the fact that Jimbo has been able to elevate A&M to where they are right now has been wildly impressive. I was sitting here, I came on with an apology today and say, I had to apologize to Jimbo Fisher this time last year. What are you doing, man? You're poking the bear. You're going after Alabama. You're saying you're going to beat Alabama while Saban's there and the whole thing. And then they went out and did it. You got to give him credit.
Yeah, I give credit. I think he's a good coach. And the one thing he's working with is I think he's got like one of the top 2 or 3 best fan bases in the country. I mean, he's you've got that built in there. I mean, that atmosphere is built in. So I think that certainly helps him out. And, who knows? I mean, is he going to be the next guy to win a national title? I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of competition out there for sure. But I think he's done a really nice job at A&M.
So where are you with college football in general right now, with the transfer portal, name, image, and likeness, how the environment has shifted? Because I've always been a big proponent of name, image, likeness. Get the players their piece of the pie; they deserve it. And the NCAA completely dropped the ball going into it, didn't set up anything, kind of threw their hands up and like, we lost and you guys go after it. And now they're trying to come back around, I feel like, and get some kind of handle on what I don't disagree with Nick Saban's sentiment. Yeah, I think Texas A&M absolutely went out there and put out great offers for guys to come to their program. But guess what? You can do that. I know the way the rule is worded, you're not supposed to be able to do that before they come to your school and the whole thing. But I don't know if you can get a handle around that, man. And
yeah, you can.
It's always happened. It's always been under the table, and now it's just a bit more above the table, and coaches can go after each other. I don't have a big problem with it.
Yeah, I've got a little bit of a problem with the amount of money that I mean, it's got to be regulated. I mean, we all know that the NIL is not there for paying players $2 million to go to a school. It's there for a guy like the Carry-On Joyner to get a $5,000 from the Belk Bowl, or it's there for him to get $5,000 from the betting company here in town that he does commercials for, or allows him to benefit from the camp that he had last Saturday. Like, that's what it's there for. I mean, we know that. You know that. I know that. I know you're a big free enterprise, unrestricted free agent, pay them out the yazoo. That's just professionalizing college sports to me.
But
It's just professionalizing it, and I think guys should be able to make money for their name, image, and likeness. I agree with that. But I also I think it's, in football, maybe it's a little different because of the difference in FBS and FCS. I think in basketball, it's going to ruin the fun of the field of 64. Guys at College of Charleston are not getting NIL deals like guys at South Carolina or Clemson or UNC or Duke will. Well, I think the great thing about college basketball was always the parity. But guys at CFC, they don't have the visibility that the other players do. They're not playing on national TV. There's just no sense for companies to sponsor them with the type of money that guys at the bigger schools who are on ESPN are. So I just think that the rich are going to get richer and the poor might get poorer, and that divide is going to hurt college basketball. I just think that divide hurts. In the field of 64, where we have seen a 16 beat a 1, there is no guy that is going to UMBC for the NIL deal. He might get something when they win, like those guys on St. Peter's did. But ultimately, I think that the rich are going to get better and the poor are going to get poorer, and you're going to see a divide.
I get it that you're going to be able to get better players, but I think you also get bigger headaches and more issues when you got guys coming in making money, and you got an instant motivation problem. So I'm with you on that. But to have seen St. Peter's do what they did, I think you're still going to get those great stories. The NCAA tournament is just designed for that to happen. College football right now, I'm with you, is designed kind of the other way. But Spencer Rattler's at South Carolina. I mean, the fact that you have that right now, I think shows me that it doesn't have to be that rich or going to get richer kind of.
Well, I think the UMBC and the St. Peter's of the world, I think they're going to be what they are. They are going to be what they are. But I feel like the College of Charlestons of the world, that's who I pay attention to, because that's our big baby here. That they're the ones that are competing with the big time schools. And they can't offer what those big-time schools could offer. Guys aren't choosing between St. Peter's and Michigan, right? But guys are choosing between College of Charleston and NC State, or something like that, where NC State just has astronomically more resources to get those guys big deals rather than College of Charleston and what they're offering. And I think it truly hurts a school like a College of Charleston, who is at the upper echelon of mid-majors, that eventually could become a major program if they end up making a jump to the A10 or something like that. It hurts a school like that. It hurts a program like that, and they're hurt by they're just not on TV. I mean, they're simply not on TV. The Flow Sports deal, I think, stinks anyway, but that's a separate entity to begin with. But they're not on TV like those big time schools are all the time. And in that regard, I think it hurts I think it hurts basketball. I really do think it hurts basketball. And as far as the transfer portal goes, I agree with the transfer portal. With the speed and rapid rate that coaches could jump from school to school to school, I think students should be able to as well. But I just hate to see what it's doing to high school recruiting. It has absolutely killed recruiting in the high school ranks. I've talked to Barkley Radebaugh quite often here about it. He's the coach at Charleston Southern, but obviously known up by your way. And he's basically said, I can't recruit high school anymore. I've got to just go to the portal because I can't line up against all these other teams who have 22 and 23-year-olds across the front. They are grown, mature men. I can't line up in a need to win now situation with 18-year-olds that I hone their skills. I've got to get transfers who are 22 and 23 and their bodies have filled out and they might just want to be looking for more minutes elsewhere. Like, that's who I've got to go with to compete with those schools who are just bringing in all transfers. So I think at that point, like, what do you do when you're a senior in high school? Unless you're an elite player, a Paolo Banchero who you know is going to go to a Duke, like that second level of really good high school players, like, what do you do? There's just not the availability out there. I don't know what those guys do.
Well, to me, what you're talking about is what has been set up for a long time in major college sports and basically different divisions, right? Power 5, and then you got everything else. And I think this thing's coming sooner than we think, especially with the way that college football is reorganizing with the Texas and Oklahoma coming to the SEC and those college football playoff expansion talks kind of on a big pause or kind of coming to a head and not working out. Do you foresee that happening sooner? You think this NCAA model is going to be able to hold on for much longer?
No, I think you're going to end up having some sort of a break off, and they're going to just break off and swim in their own directions. I really do. Eventually, the NCAA is going to just make one too many bad decisions, and one school is going to lead to 2 to 3 to 4 who break off, and you're going to have separate entities. I really do think that eventually it's going to happen. I hate to bring it back to hockey with you. I really do. I hate bringing it back to hockey. But I think the hockey system of having a juniors system is an awesome system and an awesome way to alleviate all this. Guys are 15, 16 years old. Hey, I want to pursue hockey. I want to pursue this. I'm going to go play juniors, whether that's in Canada in the OHL or the Western Hockey League. Those are the premier where those guys, everything is taken care of, but they are not being paid a salary, but everything else is taken care of. And from there, you can get drafted and go pro, or you can get drafted and say, I don't want to go pro. I want to go play college hockey. And guys are coming into college hockey older and more ready to play at the collegiate level, or they could decide to go pro, but it doesn't mess up high school and it doesn't mess up anything else. They have those decisions that it's almost like a prep school, but it's 3 years that they could do this for, and then make a more educated decision, have a more developed body, and be ready to go to that next level. They can jump from the OHL straight to the NHL. Like, you can make that jump if you're a good enough player, and you're a whole lot more equipped to jump to the NHL from the juniors, where you've basically been a pro for 3 years and living that life. And I just think their progression it sets the standard for what it should be like. And I think other sports here in America would be really, I think they would put them on a better track to do something like that.
It's an interesting model for sure. I think, though, the hockey world has had a handle on that, and the money involved, I think, is just enough to be good enough to make that system happen, but not too much to where you get a college basketball, a college football situation. And I think that's the main difference there, right? Too much money to be made, too many other people involved and getting their piece.
Yeah, no, money is driving this whole thing. There's no question about it. This is all driven by money, and I don't know what the right answer is. I mean, obviously, if I did, I'd have a lot better job than I do working in Charleston, if I knew what the right answer would be. But I don't know how you reel this whole thing in now that it's been laid out. Like, you have now opened up the floodgates for the NIL stuff. I don't know how do you hone it in from here? I do not know how you do it. And look, we're never going to see guys go from high school to the NFL. It's never going to happen. You need that college football barrier in between. And I just think the only way I see it going at this point, where it can kind of maintain where it's at and schools could be in the comfort zone where they are, is that is that decision whether to make it almost like a big time schools and a small time schools, and they're a completely separate entity. And I know you were talking about with Stewart yesterday about, yeah, if Nick Saban wants to hire 49 assistant coaches, let him hire a 49 assistant. I've got no problem with that. I really don't. I have no issues with that. I just have an issue. I have no issues with ancillary spending on facilities and coaches and everything. I just have an issue with schools literally pairing guys up with millions of dollars to bring them in.
See, I got no problem with that, because if Dabo Swinney can make $9 million from the success of the guys playing, then I think
Sure.
guys playing should be able to make it. We won't continue to go back and forth on that, though. What else you got?
No, I was just going to say I get it, but pay them what you want, but just don't call it college sports at that time. At that point, don't call it collegiate athletics.
Right, but you went to the University of South Carolina. You've been around big time programs. You understand that what it is now and how many guys take advantage of that academic opportunity, how low that percentage is for these big time programs, right?
Yeah, you do, but you also see guys who do take advantage of it. I mean, there's a lot of guys who are not playing in the NFL right now who are using that college degree. I mean, unquestionably, there are a whole lot of those guys who are using that college degree that they earn. So in a way, I think a lot of those guys would think that it is I'm trying to think of a good example. I mean, I guess like a Perry Orth, but he came as a walk-on, so I think he's a different situation completely. He's a completely different situation as a walk-on type guy. But I'm trying to think of a guy. The best example that I could think of is if you remember years back. You remember Trammell Terry from Goose Creek. He was South Carolina Mr. Football. Went to Georgia. I mean, he was an elite high school player. Elite. He tore his ACL in the Shrine Bowl and was never the same after that. But, he still went to Georgia, and I think he transferred to Jacksonville State after that. But he still got that college degree, and he is working completely out of a football capacity right now and is using that degree that was paid for. He did not bring that Mr. Football athletic acumen to Georgia, but he still got that college degree and is using that to make a living right now.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. I think we all agree that's a good thing. We don't want to see that necessarily go away. I just think you can add to that with all the money being made, especially in college football, college basketball. But as you were talking about college basketball, Scotty, man, from an old guy perspective, sitting here at 44 years old, it hadn't been the game that I grew up on in a long, long time, man. I mean, Jermaine O'Neal jumped straight from Eau Claire to the NBA in what, 98 or something crazy like that? 97.
Yeah, he was like the second.
Time.
Well, it started with what? Moses Malone was like the
right.
first one, and then are you watching that Winning Time show on HBO, the Magic Johnson show on HBO?
No, what about you? I've heard good things, but I'm not watching it.
Phenomenal. It's phenomenal. But what's the guy's name that was on the Lakers back then who did Hayward, I think was his name, that was on the Lakers back in the Magic 80, somewhere around there. I think it was Hayward, but I can't remember the guy's name. But he was another example of he did that. Guys did it early, and then the Kevin Garnetts and the Jermaine O'Neals and the Tracy McGrady's of the world, they all did very, very, very well. I think the biggest difference then and now is just that the emergence of the foreign players now is making they are such smart, well-developed players, the Jokic's of the world, and the foreign players are coming over here so well developed by playing pro so young over there that it's a little different for guys that would try to jump from high school. Now, obviously they can't do that, but the guys that would jump from high school, I don't think they would succeed like the Jermaine O'Neals of the world.
Yeah, you got the developmental league there with the NBA as well, not called the G League anymore, but that opportunity. You got other pro leagues that high school guys have done to some degree and varying degrees of success, and then you got big time players from the state of South Carolina go into major colleges. Zion Williamson and other guys in your area have jumped to SEC programs. The Tennessee thing has been really fascinating. I guess Julian Phillips is the latest guy from from the state of South Carolina to go to Tennessee.
I think players love playing for Rick Barnes. I think
Is that
it's
what it
simple as
is?
that. I think players love. I mean, Josiah James. I know Josiah really well. I mean, he loves Rick Barnes. I think it's a I love Rick Barnes thing, and they love playing for Rick Barnes. I think he's a player's coach. I really do. I think he's a different one though, because he was highly recruited from day one. The other guys that came out of Portugal, the Chris Middletons and the Aaron Neesmiths, were other schools were late to pick up on them, so they just kind of stuck with their original commitments, and they kind of rolled with those original commitments of Texas A&M and Vanderbilt. And I mean, they're also really smart guys, and academically, a school like Vanderbilt fits Aaron Neesmith. I mean, I think his brother went to Harvard. I mean, and there's a academic part of that he wanted out of Vanderbilt. So he's kind of a different scenario. But ultimately, I mean, Lamont Paris has got to go and land a big timer. That's what he's paid to do. He's got to go land that big time recruit. That's what he's got to do. I mean, otherwise, I mean, Zion went. I mean, obviously there was probably money involved in the whole Zion thing. I don't know how on the up and up the whole Zion thing was, but I would think that you've got to. That's just. I don't fault guys for leaving the state to go where they think they have the best opportunity. That doesn't bother me at all. I mean, there's no guarantee that South Carolina or Clemson is going to work out for them. I got no problem with a guy going to Duke or UNC or wherever it may be.
Yeah, how you can fault a kid for doing that has always been so frustrating to see. I get it, man. You want, if you're a Clemson fan, you want your program to be better. A South Carolina fan, the same thing. But
Right.
Such a difficult job. You mentioned Lamont Paris. I feel like the situation he's coming into it couldn't be much more challenging right now, coming off the Frank Martin era. What about you?
It just shows how you are as a recruiter from day one. I mean, because you do not get 4 years to build a program anymore. You get 1 year because the transfer portal. The transfer portal allows you to show what you've got in 1 year. I could bring in the team that I want. I could set up the system that I want. I can recruit guys to that system, and I'm expected to win immediately. Would I want to work under that pressure? Hell no. But I think everyone, you've got 4 years to build a program excuse now. The transfer portal has said goodbye to that. You come in, your team next year will be your team. I mean, every single one of these coaches is building through the transfer portal. So this team is your team. You're picking guys, you're recruiting guys through that portal, and there are enough good players in there that you could make a team that is yours next year. So we'll see what kind of coach Lamont Paris is very quickly. I mean, there will not be a grace period. He's going to have to come in and prove himself like that, and that stinks for ADs. I would hate that as an AD, that you got to hire and fire that quickly. But again, we're talking about instant gratification, and that's instant gratification.
Yeah, what about from the baseball perspective right now? College of Charleston having a heck of a year down there with Chad Holbrook, the top 50 RPI, I think. Is this going to be a case where they still need to win their conference tournament to get in to ensure that they get in? That's where they are?
Yeah, I think so. Just because their conference isn't great. It's okay, but it's not great. There are definitely other conferences out there better than the CAA. Their RPI took a huge hit when they were swept on the road at High Point. That was a huge hit to their RPI. I know they were not happy about that one, was losing that series to High Point. But they've done everything they could do in the CAA right now. They wrapped it up 2 weeks ago. But you got to go and win the CAA tournament. And there's always tough outs in that tournament. I mean, Wilmington is always a tough out. Elon could really be a tough out. There are some good teams in the CAA that are certainly overlooked. But if CFC plays the way they can, they're getting that Danny Brooks back. That he was the stud pitcher who he's from Bishop, England. But he was a first round talent. And his dad set a number ridiculously high, and major league teams balked it. They didn't play poker with him, and so he ended up going to college. And I mean, he is a dominant Saturday starter. Ty Good, their Friday guy, is CAA pitcher of the year. If Danny Brooks is their Saturday guy, and he's as good as advertised, which he showed that he was before he had shoulder tendonitis, And then that Prevette, I think he's from your neck of the woods, the closer that threw against Clemson up there in Columbia and shut things down. They've got all the pieces of a pitching staff to be a team that can make a run.
Chad Holbrook, is he good with his job? Is he like that thing? Is he a good fit? You
Yeah.
feel like for the College of Charleston?
Great fit. I think he's a great fit for the College of Charleston because he's the kind of guy that he could. He doesn't have the ego. He doesn't have the ego that, like, I need to have a private jet or I need to have whatever the amenities were at South Carolina. He doesn't need those things. CFC doesn't have them. I mean, they're getting them, and that's thanks to him. I mean, he's helped raise the money to make Patriots Point what it needs to be. I know Stewart yesterday was talking about how much facilities matter. Coastal had a mediocre facility. Now it's got a palace. CFC is below a mediocre facility at Patriots. I mean, it's beautiful aesthetically, but they don't have bathrooms in the dugout. They don't have, anything like that. I mean, they've got porta potties, and there are certainly things there that set the College of Charleston back. But I think they just raised like $1 million to really beef it up, and that was thanks to Chad Holbrook. Number one, winning, and number two, shaking hands. I think he's a great fit there. He's got the one thing that Chad Holbrook's got going for him tremendously here is, first of all, he recruits very, very well in the state. Always has, always will, does very well recruiting. But he's also got a very supportive athletics director who I think they were groomsmen in each other's weddings. I mean, Matt Roberts and him were together at UNC, and Matt Roberts played baseball at UNC. So he's a baseball guy. When you've got a guy who played college baseball and is, oh, by the way, one of your best friends as your AD and your boss, that sets up to be a very good situation.
Yeah, kind of the anti-Ray Tanner dynamic there at South Carolina that he came off of. I think also just the fact that he had that reputation in the state kind of sets him up. And you mentioned the recruiting. He's always been a good recruiter. Always. And,
always a good recruiter. And, it's are they the premier team in the state? It's a tough year to be the premier team in the state because Coastal is really darn good and Wofford's really good. So it's a tough year to be the premier mid-major in the state. But I think you've got 3 mid-majors this year that very well can be in the tournament. And then, the Carolina Clemsons are the ones you're kind of wondering about.
Right. The Clemson RPI is solid. The ACC record is not. And it's going to be interesting to see if they can – if and how they work their way in the NCAA tournament here with a week left in the regular season or three games left in the regular season, the tournament still to come. But the ACC has been really, really good. I think that has Clemson in a pretty decent spot as we sit here today. South Carolina's got a bunch of work to do if they can even think about it. I want to get your thoughts about the Phil Mickelson situation, man. Haven't seen Mickelson do what he did this time last year in Kiowa, and then now a year later. Wow.
He is ostracized.
Yeah,
ostracized from golf. Nuts. Just crazy. But you know what? True colors end up showing through. And I think you saw his true colors. I think we see them now. And,
did you think Tiger threw him completely under the bus the other day? I mean, that was a pretty solid line in the sand, or however you want to put it, right? Him coming out and basically saying it's all about legacy for me and the PGA Tour and the whole deal.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. And athletically, what Phil did last year, winning Kiowa, which is a really tough course to get around to begin with, to do that at 50 whatever years he was, and an unbelievable accomplishment. You'll never take that accomplishment away from him. You'll never take what he physically did away from him at Kiowa. I mean, that will always be one of the great golf performances of all time. But his legacy is completely tarnished. It is a completely different legacy. And, I just think, he always had that squeaky clean image that he banked on. And he'll always be remembered as a great golfer. But it's the squeaky clean image that we're just not going to remember anymore.
Too Victorian.
And
interesting hemline on this.
What are we hearing there, Tim?
Trying to update the PGA Tour scores, and then got a little interference there on you, Scotty. My
Apparently so.
apologies for that
And
one.
then I think it's like a different thing. Like
Scott continues to go. The greatness of Scott Eisberg. Look at him go. It's just
like I
go,
think
go,
I
go.
think that if
See if I can make sure that we. All right, I think we're back good now with Scotty.
I think like if Dustin Johnson said something like Phil Mickelson, I don't think it would have been a huge deal because I don't think Dustin Johnson banks on that squeaky clean image. Like, you know, he's had his personal issues before. He's not this big, smiley, outgoing guy. You know, Dustin Johnson is just known as a damn good golfer, but he's not known as Phil Mickelson. And so I don't think it would be a big deal in the golf world if Dustin Johnson had said things that Phil Mickelson had said. But I think we've seen Phil Mickelson painted as this squeaky clean, great guy, all-American dude for so long that it was just like, oh, well, that wasn't real.
Yeah. So now, what are you hoping to see this weekend with the PGA Championship? You like some of these young guys? You want Tiger to be relevant? Where are you at with the golf?
Yeah, I mean, I want Tiger to be relevant because golf matters when Tiger is relevant. I like the young guys, the Scotty Scheffler type guys. I mean, I really do like those because I think they're good dudes. I really do think they're pretty good guys. So for me, I think golf is better when Tiger is involved. It used to be, man, I hate it because every single shot that Tiger hits, you've got to watch on TV. It's not like that anymore. You can watch any group now. I mean, especially in these big tournaments, you can go on any of the streaming platforms and watch any of the groups. So that being said, you're still going to see plenty of Tiger if he is in the running. But there are enough guys who are big enough names that the Colin Morikawas of the world seems like a really good guy, and Scotty Scheffler seems like a really good guy, and there are certain guys out there that just seem like good dudes who I have no problem with them winning, and the other part of it is when you look at Tiger's body of work, no matter what he does now, I don't think anything will ever compare to coming back and winning the Masters. So, like, I don't think anything that he does now would ever top that. So that will always be the memory for me, golf-wise, of Tiger, when he made that comeback. I mean, his comeback was complete with that. So after the car accident, to come back and win a PGA would be a huge story, but it is still the PGA. Southern Hills is not an iconic venue like Augusta. And there's just something different about winning the PGA at Southern Hills and winning Augusta and putting on a green jacket.
Even through 9 is where I got Tiger right now. And Rory at 4 under with a lead, I think, at the top of the leaderboard. Will Zalatoris right up there as well. Just to give you the latest update on the PGA Championship, man. And do you get into the majors? Or you all into hockey? You're too into hockey right now.
No, I get into the majors. No, I get into the majors. I get into the majors. No, of course I get into the majors. No doubt. No doubt. Masters Masters is a little weird for us here because we've got tennis that week. So that's a huge week for us tennis-wise coverage. Right. So we don't truly get into the Masters as well. But, I mean, I've covered 2 of the PGAs here in Charleston, and they've both been – 2 of the most memorable weeks I've ever had. You had the first one in 12 with Rory just absolutely steamrolling the field, and then Phil last year doing what Phil did. Both of them iconic images of golfers walking up 18 at Kiowa and just getting swamped by the gallery. I mean, great stuff. Awesome stuff. I absolutely love the majors. I also follow a couple other, we have a couple local guys that we follow on tour that I always find that fun to follow. We lost one of them who's having a great year. Russell Henley. He lived here for 10 years, but he just moved back to Columbus, Georgia. I think it's his wife's hometown. So he's not here anymore. But we still have a pretty good set of golfers that make their home here, and it's fun to follow them and their careers. And I'm pretty good buddies with a caddy on the tour, which is fun. Mark Hubbard is his golfer. Kyle Peters is the caddy. And I always laugh at him because he's a great guy. He's a great golfer and known him for years. But he was a caddy for Corey Connors for a year. And Corey Connors has become a top 10 golfer in the world. And the country of Canada wanted Corey Connors to have a Canadian caddy for the Olympics. So Kyle Peters lost his job, and Corey Connors has gone on with that caddy now to become a top 10 in the world golfer. I'm like, man, how much money that cost you, Kyle? Like, holy smokes, that cost you hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, the job of the PGA Tour caddy is fascinating to me. I think it might be the most interesting job in sports.
I think one of the best statistics of the entire year, without question, was that at some point this past year, Austin Johnson was number 18 on the PGA Tour money list. As a caddy, Austin Johnson was number 18 on the PGA Tour money list. That's incredible.
The DJ's brother and my buddy Bill Gunter actually coached him in like JV basketball, I think, back in the day, and the whole thing. But yeah, it's a great story. He is a great story, and obviously the Dustin Johnson deal too. But yeah, good nice work bringing up the caddy stuff today, man. Showing your wealth of knowledge. What you got going work wise down in the Low Country today on TV?
We've got we're all the baseball series are starting up today, but we're wrapping up. We've got Tim Hill, one of the great baseball shooters of all time. Do you want to shoot the big Fort Mill series against Berkeley Saturday afternoon up there in Fort Mill? We could use your baseball shooting services anytime. We'll take them because I don't think there's a whole lot of media coverage for Fort Mill baseball these days. But Berkeley, what a story Berkeley is. First time playing for a baseball state championship since 1963.
Wow.
They have never won one. And you talk about an athletic team, athletic program. Berkeley in all sports has always been a great athletic program. First baseball state championship series since 1963 for them. And then we've got the Oceanside Land Sharks are playing Chapman for a state championship. And the Oceanside chat is one that we could have on a whole different day, and that could take up a whole broadcast or two with what to do with the Oceansides and the Gray Collegiate and the Legion Collegiates and these charter athletic schools. Are Oceanside's winning a whole lot of championships and a whole lot of things these days. Should they be playing with the public schools or not is a tremendous discussion that you will get some very strong opinions about.
All right, we'll do it. We'll try to line up some guests, maybe help get you in to help us moderate that thing. Having seen Oceanside really kind of firsthand there, I got to see the Great Collegiate kind of firsthand pop up in Columbia area. I know Legion there and Rock Hill. Yeah, it's that as you were talking about the hockey model, it's kind of that, right?
It is. It is. I know other schools in town hate Oceanside. Hate them, but Oceanside doesn't care because they're like, look, we're here, we've got facilities, we've got the model, we're legal, we're gonna win, and that's what they do in everything. I mean, they are winning in baseball, basketball, football, lacrosse, soccer, golf, state championships across the board, and volleyball. They won a state championship in volleyball. Literally state champions in every single sport across the board. Well, the teams that they compete against, the Bishop England's a different situation too, but like the Hanahans and the Timberlands of the world who used to dominate things down here are not dominating anymore. And that is much thanks to Oceanside. So it was an interesting conversation for sure.
No doubt about it. And then interesting as well from being an old guy, a parent standpoint, like is that something you want your kid to work towards? Like you're right. That's a whole different deal. Maybe we'll do that next week, sometime soon, whenever you can get another free hour or so to join the show, man.
Beautiful. Sounds good. Scotty
Eisberg, appreciate the time today, man. Great job working in the hockey. And then you brought it full circle, getting the Low Country guys back in.
Hey, hockey. There's a lot of NHL openings right now. One of them could go to former Columbia Inferno head coach Troy Mann. He is certainly up for some NHL head coaching jobs. I will inform you if he gets one.
I know you will. Worked in your main man, Troy Mann. Well done, sir. Scotty Eisberg, ladies and gentlemen. You don't get that anywhere else. Scott is a wealth of knowledge and experience and the whole thing. Great to have him on. Good to catch up with him and good to see he's getting a little state championship baseball there down in the Low Country. And yeah, we need to have that discussion, and maybe doing it on this forum is the best way to do it, because we can have, I think, up to 10 people on here at one time. So actually, like, talking over each other would be the main issue. But if we can get that discussion going, because it's kind of like when we had David and John on a little bit earlier, one from Pelion and one from Westwood, seeing the high school shot clock institution, adding the high school shot clock to some degree in the state of South Carolina, where they come at it from a different angle, but obviously respectful of each other's opinions there, and enjoyed having them on today to get into that. Looking forward to having maybe this larger discussion in high school athletics with these charter schools that have popped up. And Scott gave the examples of Oceanside down in the Low Country, Gray Collegiate there in the Midlands, and then Legacy in the Rock Hill area. Yeah, we should get into that, because anytime anybody wins, you're going to tick people off. I mean, coach pitch baseball up to pro sports, right? Run the gamut. Anytime you're winning, other people are not going to necessarily enjoy watching you win, but to do it and seemingly be playing by a different set of rules, that's where you really get people flustered and up in arms. And that's happened in the state of South Carolina. And we'll discuss it, man. Looking forward to discussing what's going on the golf course right now with you tomorrow, with the first round of the PGA Championship, and Rory McIlroy up at the top, and Tiger Woods at least lingering right around even par at last check through the front side. So we'll get into that tomorrow. Who knows where else we'll go? We got plenty of college baseball to talk about, with the Gamecocks getting going with Florida in Gainesville tonight in game 1 of that series. We got Clemson at home against Boston College this weekend to round things out, and looking to finish strong and solidify their NCAA tournament resume. So plenty to get to tomorrow, and then it is Friday. So hoping you will join us in as good a mood as possible. Thank you for joining us today, however you did it, even if you're doing this a little bit later in the podcast version of the program, or on the video version where it gets archived on YouTube. Appreciate you subscribing, liking, commenting, all of that fun stuff. And thanks for joining another edition of Tim Hill Unrestricted Free Agent. That'll do it for the Thursday show.